In the last episode, we witnessed a captivating moment as the painter completed two stunning portraits of Ashya and Carlisle. One was subtle and poised, capturing a refined elegance, while the other depicted their true, ferocious forms as they emerged victorious on the battlefield. True to his nature, Carlisle boldly decided to send the war painting to his father, a brazen display of dominance, while keeping the more understated piece within the walls of the castle, as a quieter reminder of their strength. Meanwhile, far away in the capital, the emperor found himself in a haunting dream. In his sleep, he was transported back to his youth. In the vision, a young Emir Pervaz stood triumphant on a war-torn battlefield, having just decapitated their greatest enemy. Cheers erupted all around him, celebrating Emir's decisive victory. Yet, amid the roaring acclaim, young Evaristo, then the crown prince, seethed with resentment. He believed that glory should have belonged to him, that it was his right to claim the enemy's head and the adoration of the people. He suggested to his father, the former emperor, that the brave young knight Emir should be honored for his courage and awarded the title of Count Pervaz, entrusting him with the responsibility of guarding the empire's borderlands. The former emperor readily agreed, turning Evaristo's plan into reality. The order was issued, and Emir was bound to his new fate. Despite his valor and hard-won victory, Emir was met with a cruel twist of destiny. Instead of basking in glory, he was consigned to a harsh and perilous existence at the empire's edge. In the dream, Emir lunged at Evaristo, sword blazing with fury as he struck. And in that moment, Emperor Evaristo jolted awake, heart pounding and drenched in sweat. Gasping for breath, he scanned his dim chamber, struggling to shake the visceral memory of Emir's searing wrath. Sensing his distress, a loyal servant rushed to his side, offering a glass of water. The emperor accepted, his trembling hands betraying the weight of the nightmare's lingering grip. As he drank, his gaze fell upon the letter from Carlisle that lay ominously on his desk, a letter that seemed to thrum with an unsettling energy. The emperor's thoughts churned, connecting the dream's torment to Carlisle's missive. In it, Carlisle had written with cold precision, since leaving the royal palace and the supposed peace of his father's throne, he had faced a different reality, one that demanded blood, sacrifice, and strength. To convey this harsh truth, he had sent a portrait, a portrayal of the battles, the brutality, and the bond forged between him and his wife. Evaristo shivered at the thought of Carlisle and Ashya's war-soaked likeness. A few days later, the empress spoke with an edge in her voice, noting to the emperor, "It's been nearly a year since Carlisle's marriage, and still there's no news of an heir. This is becoming a serious matter." The emperor, who had long grown weary of these discussions, sighed and replied, "They have been fighting on the front lines, risking their lives day in and day out. It's hardly surprising they haven't had time for such things." The empress, undeterred, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. "Children are born even in the midst of war, your majesty. Those two are in perfect physical health and should have produced a child by now, regardless of their battles. It's strange, unnatural, even, that they haven't." "What would you have me do?" the emperor asked bluntly, more exasperated than concerned. With a sly smile, the empress suggested, "Send a priest to bless their union with fertility. If there are any barriers, a holy blessing will ensure they conceive." Meanwhile, in Pervaz, Carlisle felt his stomach tighten as he read the imperial letter. Bailey, noticing Carlisle's grim expression, asked, "What's the letter about?" Carlisle's eyes flicked up from the parchment, irritation barely concealed. "The empire is sending a priest to bless our marriage. Apparently, they're so concerned with the absence of a child that they think a holy intervention is necessary." Carlisle's face darkened as he considered the implications. "If we refuse the blessing, they'll claim our marriage is a sham and try to invalidate it," he said. His tone was sharp, underscoring the stakes. Bailey's jaw dropped. "That's absurd. They have no right to judge the validity of your marriage. You should just tell them it's genuine and be done with it." A wry smirk tugged at the corners of Carlisle's lips. "Oh, I'm not worried about proving it to them. What concerns me is who they're sending." Bailey immediately caught on, his expression growing serious. "You're thinking of Gabriel, aren't you? But why would the empire send someone as powerful and influential as him just for a blessing? He'd have to be away from the capital for at least a month." "Exactly," Carlisle replied. "Whatever Gabriel plans to do here, it's worth the inconvenience. It's not just about the blessing. This trip is a move, possibly a dangerous one." Bailey nodded slowly, realizing the depth of the situation. "Then you'll need to look like a convincing couple when Gabriel arrives. You should discuss this with the countess." When Carlisle explained the situation to Ashya, he outlined every detail with practiced calm. "In light of that, they've decreed that the mother of any future child needs a special room, a couple's bedroom." "Do we really have to do this?" she asked, a note of reluctance clear in her voice. Carlisle raised an eyebrow, his voice calm but tinged with teasing incredulity. "Shouldn't it be natural by now for a married couple to share a bedroom?" Ashia's gaze hardened in defiance. But wouldn't it be dangerous? Letting someone as suspicious as Gabriel into a room where we both sleep, it doesn't sit right with me. Seeing her point, Carlin's features softened. I understand, but we don't have many options, he conceded. We could use one of the guest rooms temporarily, it might only be necessary for 2 or 3 days. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by Bailey, who stepped in with his usual bluntness. Pardon my intrusion, but I have to ask something I can't wrap my head around. From what I know, you've already shared a bedroom, so why does it feel like you're both treating this as if it's just a political alliance? Silence hung in the air. When neither Carlisle nor Ashya responded, Bailey's eyes widened with realization. Wait, could it be that even that was staged? He asked incredulously. Yes, both Carlisle and Ashya replied in unison, as if by reflex. Bailey, apparently willing to let it slide, gave a resigned shrug. Well, whatever the case, Countess, just don't slip up now. You've played the role of Lord Carlin's wife well enough so far. You'll just have to add sharing a room to your duties, at least 2 or 3 nights a week. Ashya's cheeks flushed, betraying her discomfort at the idea. Carlisle, meanwhile, observed her reaction with a hint of amusement. So, she's still affected by what happened, he thought with a faint smirk. In Cecilia's chambers, tension was thick enough to cut. Her maid tried to offer a bright perspective, explaining, Lady Cecilia, His Highness gifted you tea, surely he knows how much you love it. Cecilia's lips thinned, her voice snapping with irritation. No, he gave everyone on the 2nd floor the same tea. It's nothing special. Her anger grew, her voice rising as she added, and now, Carlisle has even ordered a couple's bedroom on the 2nd floor for him and the Countess. The maid attempted to comfort her, offering a few consoling words, but Cecilia waved her away sharply. Leave, she commanded. As the door closed behind her maid, Cecilia was left alone with her thoughts, the weight of her precarious position pressing down hard on her chest. Even if Carlisle refuses to divorce that woman, she told herself, he will have to make a move eventually. He is the crown prince once again, yet, doubt wormed its way in, whispering taunts. Will I become a laughingstock? Will my brothers mock me? Will my father, the only one who has ever truly cared for me, turn his back? The questions spiraled in her mind, suffocating her. But through her mounting despair, a sharp determination began to solidify. There was no room for envy. If she wanted to become someone of true power and influence, she had to act. In another part of the castle, Raffles's frustration was reaching a boiling point. He glared at his daughter, Dorothea, his voice cold and cutting. You've done nothing, to impress Carlisle or uncover any weaknesses of Cecilia, he scolded harshly. Dorothea, nerves taut, tried to reason with him. Father, I haven't had much opportunity to spend time around Cecilia. No excuses. Raffles's voice cracked like a whip. If you can't manage something as simple as that, how do you think you'll ever become empress? Dorothea's mouth opened as if to protest, but Raffles cut her off, his eyes narrowing. Since when did you start talking back to me? Shame burned in her cheeks, and Dorothea bowed her head. I'm sorry, father, I spoke out of turn. Unmoved by her apology, Raffles pressed on, his voice low but dangerous. I need every scrap of information you can find about Countess Pervaz. Dorothea blinked, uncertain. Countess Pervaz, what are you implying? Raffles's lips twisted into a bitter smile. Carlisle appears to be more attached to her than we anticipated. If she becomes too much of a problem, our only option might be to make her disappear. The blood drained from Dorothea's face, but Raffles's eyes remained hard. He softened only slightly, a grim and calculating glimmer in his gaze. You must prepare yourself for the reality of our world. It's kill or be killed. Turning slightly, he gestured toward the training grounds. Decker knows more about Ashya than anyone else. Get close to him. He'll be useful. The command left no room for negotiation. Dorothea nodded numbly, understanding the ruthlessness expected of her. The next day, seeking a rare moment of peace away from her father's relentless expectations, Dorothea found a quiet, empty area in the castle to enjoy her novel. She placed her small clock carefully on the table beside her, sat down on a stone bench, and immersed herself in the thrilling pages. It felt like a fleeting escape from the harsh realities surrounding her. But suddenly, a thud startled her, and the clock clattered to the ground. Startled, Dorothea looked up and found herself face to face with Decker, who had apparently stumbled, knocking it over. Decker quickly bent to retrieve the clock, an apologetic smile crossing his face. I'm sorry about that. Here, let me repair it. I'll take care of it if you leave it with me for a few days. It's really not necessary, Dorothea replied, trying to dismiss the offer. But Decker insisted. No, I insist. Since I'm the one who caused the problem, I should be the one to fix it. He wrapped the small clock carefully in a handkerchief, offering her a reassuring nod. I'll return it good as new. As he stood, his eyes landed on the book in Dorothea's hands. Wait, are you reading that? He asked, a spark of interest lighting up his expression. Dorothea nodded, surprised by his sudden enthusiasm. Yes, it's a popular mystery novel. Decker's eyes widened with excitement. No way, so, was it Warner who did it in the end, or was it Rupert? He stopped himself abruptly, shaking his head. No, don't tell me, I'll finish it myself. Dorothea couldn't help but smile at his energy. You really like mystery novels, don't you? Oh, absolutely, Decker said, his eyes brightening with nostalgia. I picked up the habit when I visited the capital. Stayed up all night reading sometimes. They're too good to put down. Gathering her courage, she offered, if you'd like, I could lend you some of my mystery novels. Decker hesitated, clearly unsure. I'm not so sure that's a good idea. I don't think Raffles would be too happy about it. Dorothea's smile faltered, and her expression turned somber. I don't care what my father thinks. He's always on my case about reading too much anyway. Realizing the depth of her feelings, Decker softened. All right, then, I'd appreciate that. Books are hard to come by, and I only managed to buy 3 when I visited the capital. They're not cheap. A spark of curiosity flared in Dorothea's eyes. She asked directly, then why are the soldiers here doing so much for Pervaz when they're paid so little? Decker's expression grew thoughtful. Countess Pervaz has tried to increase our compensation many times, he explained. But we've always turned her down. As long as we have enough to eat and a roof over our heads, we're content. But some of you must have families to support, Dorothea pointed out, a note of concern in her voice. Decker nodded. That's true, but sometimes, making sacrifices now means building something even more meaningful for those families later, don't you think? Realizing she might have been insensitive, Dorothea immediately apologized. Decker shook his head. No need to apologize. It's good to see someone ask questions, Lady Dorothea. Not everyone does. Decker chuckled softly, brushing off Dorothea's concerns with a reassuring smile. We've faced far worse than words or insults. Our convictions are stronger than that. With a courteous nod, he excused himself. I'll leave you to your peace, Lady Dorothea. I'd hate for your father to come around and spoil it. He stepped away quietly, offering her a rare moment of solitude amidst castle intrigues. A few days later, the tension in Pervaz shifted as Gabriel Knox arrived. Ashya and Carlisle stood at the entrance to receive him, their expressions masked with carefully controlled politeness. After exchanging pleasantries, Carlisle's voice took on a biting edge. You must understand, he drawled, the Empress's endless meddling causes no small inconvenience to us. Gabriel's smile was as smooth as silk, but the steel beneath it was unmistakable. What could possibly matter more than ensuring the birth of the Emperor's next grandson? Oh, many things, Carlisle shot back coolly. Like the recent attempts to eliminate the healthy and rightful crown prince. Any thoughts on that? A flicker of something dark crossed Gabriel's eyes before his mouth curved into a dangerous grin. Attempts, you say? I'm afraid you'll have to enlighten me. This is the first I've heard of such plots. As the tension between Gabriel and Carlisle simmered, Ashya quickly stepped in. With a polite yet firm tone, she introduced herself as Countess Pervaz, offering Gabriel a gracious greeting. Gabriel, momentarily caught off guard, quickly apologized for his delayed acknowledgement. Ashya smiled lightly, no need for apologies. Welcome to the castle. She gestured for him to follow her, leading him through the grand yet aged halls of Pervaz. As they walked, she mentioned with a quiet sigh, I hope you understand, this is an old castle. There may be things that don't meet your usual standards. Gabriel seemed to appreciate the honesty, offering a reassuring nod. It's better than I imagined, considering the circumstances, he said thoughtfully. I've heard the war has made supplies scarce here. Thankfully, Ashya replied with a calm smile, we've managed to solve most of those issues, thanks to Carlisle's efforts. Gabriel's smile widened as he observed her, his words dipped in a thin layer of praise. I think it was your courage that kept Pervaz strong, Countess. It's clear that you've had a hand in guiding the people through these trying times. Ashya remained unfazed, recognizing Gabriel's subtle attempt to create friction between her and Carlisle. She responded coolly, thank you for the kind words, before making her way toward the door, dismissing herself from the conversation. After leaving Gabriel's room, Ashya crossed paths with Carlisle in the lobby. And she quickly shared her thoughts. I believe Gabriel is trying to create a wedge between us, she said, her expression serious. Carlisle's lips curled into a smirk, his eyes gleaming with amusement. Did he try to bless you in the name of the goddess of beauty, then? He asked, a playful glint in his voice. Ashya looked at him, confused. Who is that? Carlisle raised an eyebrow, his voice laced with sarcasm. The goddess of beauty. She's quite popular, or haven't you heard? She's the one who blesses women with beauty. That's why the church is always full of people, hoping for her favor. Ashya, not one to be swayed by such superficial gestures, replied coolly, I know about her. But I don't think a woman like me would need such a blessing, do you? Carlin's expression shifted, and he fixed his gaze on her with a sudden intensity. Why would you say that? He asked, his voice now serious. Ashya, taken aback by his sudden change in tone, responded with genuine confusion. Did I say something wrong? Carlin's face hardened. Yes, you did, he replied bluntly, his voice now carrying a weight of unspoken emotion. Without another word, he turned on his heel, walking away from her. Ashya stood there for a moment, her mind racing, trying to decipher what had just happened. As evening settled, Gabriel joined Carlisle and Ashya for dinner, and he couldn't help but notice the servants' unmistakable coldness. Even though a direct servant of God had come to visit, they maintained a noticeable distance, their demeanor far from warm or respectful. Suddenly, Carlin's voice cut through the tension, commanding Gabriel's attention with a pointed question. Why have you honored us with your presence tonight? Gabriel, maintaining his composure, replied that he had simply come to bless Carlisle, hoping for him to bear a descendant. With a sly grin, Carlisle leaned forward, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, is that what stepmother is hoping for so desperately? He asked, his words laced with mocking amusement. Carlin's eyes narrowed, and he pressed on. Tell me, does Her Majesty's desire align with my father's wishes? With an even sharper tone, he questioned, are you certain my father wanted the royal blood to flourish so far from the capital? The question struck a nerve, and Gabriel's expression hardened, his patience beginning to thin. Carlisle, sensing his discomfort, pushed further. Could it be, he asked with feigned innocence, that this was all planned without my father's knowledge? Gabriel bristled at the insinuation, but he simply replied, I have no choice but to expect you to listen to reason. Carlisle, ever the schemer, raised an eyebrow, his suspicion clear. You came here on your own accord, didn't you? Gabriel, sensing the growing tension, quickly reassured Carlisle, his voice firm but controlled. I am here for none of the reasons you might suspect, he said, trying to put an end to Carlin's probing questions. Hearing Carlin's cunning question, Gabriel stiffened as he was asked, could you swear by God's name that this is true? The challenge was clear, and Gabriel, after a brief hesitation, made a decision. With a quiet but resolute voice, he swore, trusting that God would allow him to lie if it served a greater purpose. Carlisle, seemingly satisfied for a moment, shifted the conversation in a new direction. I've heard rumors, he began, a sly glint in his eye, that the fertility blessing must be performed in the couple's bedroom. Is that true? Gabriel nodded without missing a beat. Yes, the rumor is correct, he confirmed. After making an offering to the god of fertility in the place, I will leave quietly, as my work there will be done. Carlisle arched an eyebrow, a thoughtful smirk playing on his lips as he pressed on, and you're certain that doing it in the bedroom will be effective? Gabriel, never one to shy away from a straightforward answer, reassured him. I've never known this blessing to fail. Among all the couples I've helped, those struggling to have children, this method has always worked. His tone was firm, his words confident. And just to be clear, I'm not being nosy. I'm merely following the orders I've been given. Carlisle, however, wasn't finished. His eyes narrowed, and he leaned in, his voice tinged with mock curiosity. What if I were to say that I don't want to be blessed with pregnancy? Gabriel, genuinely intrigued, raised an eyebrow. And what would be the reason for that? He asked, genuinely curious about Carlin's rationale. Carlisle leaned back in his chair. Well, I simply don't want my wife to feel uncomfortable having to sleep with her husband with a strange man watching in the same room. Gabriel paused, the unexpected answer leaving him momentarily speechless. He couldn't help but be impressed by Carlin's cleverness and his ability to twist the conversation.